15.2, analyzing the income statement. So there's a few ratios that we like to use in analyzing an income statement. It helps us get a feel for how good the company is doing. But let me emphasize that the number that whatever we come up with on any of this analysis by itself is not very helpful, not very useful. We have to be able to compare it to something. So what we'll do is we'll compare it to another company or we'll compare it to an industry average. That will give us a better feel for how well the company is doing in comparison to others. When we talk about vertical analysis is really looking at an income statement and finding different areas of the income statement to compare. A common use of vertical analysis is taking each item on the income statement, finding the percent of that number relative to net sales. So the way we do this is we take a particular item and we divide it by net sales, the dollar amount of a particular item divided by net sales. So the example here is if you want to figure out what percentage, the percent of cost of goods sold is found by dividing the cost of goods sold by net sales. So it's right here, but we can go ahead and look at the income statement we have. Here's the cost of goods sold, 220,000. Might have a column here that says percent. It's over here, it has the amount. If I take 220,840 and I divide that by 414,600, you can do this on a calculator. I'm using a spreadsheet so that you can see it illustrated, but that comes up with 53%, 53.3% specifically. So that's an example of ratio analysis or vertical analysis. We're comparing cost of goods sold to net sales. And in fact, we could compare every one of these items, gross profit, operating expenses, net income, or operating income and net income. So as an example here, if we use the information from Apple on page 612, let's run over there real quick, page 612. Here's Apple's numbers. The cost of goods sold is listed as 121,576. So I plugged in the numbers in that into my spreadsheet. And what we would do is we would compare each one of these items relative to net sales. So I'll take the cost of goods sold of 121,576 and divide it by net sales. And that gives me 56.5%. So page 616, where we're at, 56.5%. Okay, so, and again, as I mentioned, to do any kind of computation by itself really is not very useful. So what we like to also do is, when we're completing vertical analysis, is look at one company and maybe two periods. So we're really comparing the company to itself, but we're looking at 1 year versus another year. And at that point in time, we can tell whether a company is doing better or worse. So let's first do a vertical analysis for 2015 and 16, and then build a comparative income statement and show the results on the table. So here are the numbers, and what it's telling us is we simply just take the numbers and compute each one independently. So for 2015, as an example, the base is always going to be net sales. So you could see the denominator the same, 233,715, and that comes from net sales. So another way to kind of take care of this is we'll take this and we'll divide it by that. So another way, we'll take this and we'll divide it by that. Well, net sales divided by net sales is 1 or 100%. Now we'll do the same thing here. We'll take cost of goods sold and we'll divide that by net sales. So for 2015, the percentage is 55.4%. 55.4% for 2015. Percentage of gross profit, we'll take the 104,126 and we'll divide it by the 233,715. This is all in 15. So we'll go to 15, the gross profit percentage, 104,126. 104,126 divided by net sales. Every one of these is always going to be divided by the net sales for that same period. And we have 44.6%. 44.6%. And we just do the same thing here. I'm going to copy the formula here so it'll be a little easier for me. So the gross profit percentage is going to be 44.6%. We did that already. Percentage of operating expenses, 13.5%. Operating income, percentage of operating income is 31%. Percent of income taxes is 8.2%. And 22.8%. So you could see that in 2015, we're taking whatever that line item is and dividing it by the base, and the base in this case is net sales. For that same year, remember, it's all for the same year. Now in 2016, it's the same thing, except the base changes because for 2016, the base is 215,091. 215,000, that's net sales for 2016. Now we had already computed the cost of goods sold, which is 56.5%. Gross profit is at 43.5%. Take the number divided by net sales. Operating expenses, 14.9%. Operating income divided by net sales, 28.5%. Taxes divided by net sales. And finally, net income divided by net sales. So in every year, the base is going to be net sales of that year. Also do net sales, and that divided by itself is 100%. So I guess having these right next to one another, we can kind of see that in terms of a percent, it appears for 2016, when we look purely, let's say at net income as an example, as a percentage, net income went down. In fact, even in terms of dollars, but it went down. So 21.6% for 16, and for 15 it was 22.8%. So you could see it's a downward trend. That would be concerning, particularly if it were over a continuous number of periods, just continuously going down. But certainly for Apple, that's not a big deal because they certainly have rebounded. All right, and here's what I talked to you earlier about. When we're doing all of this analysis, we have to have something to compare it to. So typically for supermarkets, the cost of goods sold is at 82.7%. So what we'll do is, let's say if we're analyzing Save Mart, we'll go in and run the cost of goods sold percentage and then compare it to the industry average. And is it better or worse? And that'll tell us how we're doing. This is what's kind of interesting is you can get like the profit margin or the percentage of net income relative to net sales, and really compare company to company, but also just kind of understand specific industries. Like supermarkets, they have a pretty low profit margin. It's only 3.4%. Men's and women's apparel is closer to 11.8%. Women's apparel is 11.7%. Shoes, 15.2%. Furniture is at 9.6%. Appliances at 7.2%. Drugs at 7.9%. And service stations are at 6.3%. But not only can you do it with net income, you could do it with wages and rent and advertising. You could see now that you have like the average for a particular business or an industry, then you can then take these numbers and compare it to your own company to figure out whether you're doing well relative to others in the same business. So here's an example here of Gina Burton wishes to compare the business ratios of her shoe store to industry averages. So her shoes, her numbers are listed there. 58.2 for cost of goods sold, gross profit is 41.8, total expenses 28.3, blah, 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 blah. You have them all listed there. Then what you'll do is you go to shoes industry average, and you'll take the numbers from here and you'll plug them into the comparison table that we have set up here. Now we'll take the cost of goods sold. Well, if we go back, we'll see it, but the previous chart shows that that's at 60.3%. From a cost of goods sold perspective, since this is a cost, you do want it to be a little bit less, and she's actually doing better. Her cost of goods is at 58.2%. Gross profit is better. Total expenses, now here she's doing a little bit worse because she's at 28.3%. The industry is about 24.5%. So maybe there's an opportunity for her to to improve, and that's what she would be looking at. Net income, 13.5, that's still lower than those in the same industry. And then, more specifically, why? Well, wages, rent, and advertising, all three of these were higher than the industry. That will give her a feel for any adjustments that she may want to be looking at or where she needs to focus her attention in order to improve her bottom line. That was what we consider to be vertical analysis. The other thing we learn is horizontal analysis, and that's looking at trends and seeing from one period to the next, how does that look? And whether or not the dollar amount is going up or down, and what the change is in terms of a percentage. So to find the percentage change, we're going to take the dollar amount change, and we're going to divide that by the previous year's amount. So the dollar amount change divided by the dollar amount of the previous years, and that's going to give us the percent change. So as an example, let's do a horizontal analysis for Apple, all right? And we're going to look strictly at sales. So I think that was at 612, right? So for 612, well, that gave us that 1 year. Actually, I think I have it on my spreadsheet. So if we're going to be doing what's called horizontal analysis, now we're going to compare one period to another period. Same category, just one period to the other period. So for example, let's compare 16 to 15, looking at the dollar change and then the percent change. So the dollar change is really clear, real simple. If we're looking at 16, we're going to take 16, we're going to subtract 15, and that gives us a reduction of 18,624. So net sales actually went down. I think we noticed that already. But net sales went down. As a percentage, we'll take that percent change, that dollar amount, 18,624, and we'll divide it by what we call the base year or the first year, which in this case is 2015. If whatever years you're comparing, you're going to go with the earliest year to be the base year. So we're going to compare that to 2015. And that gives us a reduction of, looks like 8%, 8.0. So let's confirm. Yes, decrease in sales, 18,624,000,000. And then we take that and divide it by the original year, which was 2015. And that gives us the 8%. So we took first the change, it was a reduction, and that means we lost 8%, or there was a reduction of 8% from 1 year to the next. Okay, so in the next example, number 3 is asking us to do a horizontal analysis for 2015 and 16 for Apple. We've actually already done net sales. So we'll take a look at gross profit. For 15, it was 104,126. For 2016, it was 93,515. The difference, 10,611. So we have the dollar amount change. In this case, it's decrease. We'll take that and divide it by the original, what we started off with, the base year, 104,126, and that gives us 10.2%. So let's try that. Cost of goods sold, I think we got that. Reduction of 8. So let's take a look at the gross profit. We'll do a reduction, or what's the difference or the change between 16 and 15. It did go down, so we have a reduction of, or decrease of $10,611, which matches what they're showing. So now we then compute the percentage change by taking the dollar amount change and dividing it by the base year. And the base year is 104,126. And that means that the decrease is 10.2%, negative 10.2%. And you do the same for each one of the line items. I think I can just copy this down real quick. So all of these numbers match the same thing that's on the spreadsheet. It's in the textbook. Bottom line number is net income decreased by 14.4%. Net income 14.4%. That concludes 15.2.